Hi, my reality show. I'm back with Bernice. Oh, it's Stan. Orphan, chapter 11. Bernice. As she hurried past a recessed stairway in front of a brick workshop, a flash of movement caught her eye. She stopped and looked over the iron railing. Down the stone steps, a boy in a worn jacket and ripped pants sat at the bottom of the stairs, resting his elbows on his knees. He looked to be about 7 years old with a head full of greasy dark hair and dirty hands. It's just another homeless immigrant, she thought. The city was full of them. She started walking again, then had an idea. She turned around, went to the top of the stairwell. "What are you doing down there?" she yelled to the boy. "Are you lost?" The boy stood and spun around to look up at her. His anxious anxiety furrowed his dirt-smudged brows. She started down the steps. "Do you speak English?" He moved backward, nodding some. "What's your name?" He frowned. She stopped halfway down the steps and pointed at him. "Your name?" "Neelette," he said. "Are you hungry, Neelette?" Using her hand, she pretended to eat. He nodded again, harder this time, a hollow desperation widening in his eyes. She motioned for him to come up the steps. "Follow me then," she said. "I'll take you someplace safe for a hot meal and a fresh change of clothes." He shook his head, confused. She smiled to prove that she meant no harm. "It's all right. You're not in trouble. I'm going to help you." She waved him towards. She waved him towards her. "I can get you food." After a long hesitation, he finally followed her up the steps. They walked for over 30 minutes until she stopped in front of a brick building with rows after rows of curtainless windows. She noticed the building a while ago, during one of her donations outings, and she was relieved she could remember how to get there. To her surprise, Nilek had followed her the entire way without stopping or complaining. A painted sign above the double doors read, "St. Joseph Orphan Asylum." The first time she seen the building, the horrible stories her brother had told about orphanage had come flooding back, and she crossed to the other side of the road. Now she couldn't believe she was going inside. Pushing away her fears, she took the steps up to the porch and smiled at the boy. Suddenly she froze, certain she couldn't follow through with her plans. Then she reminded herself that the city problems were a direct result of too many immigrants. The overcrowded tenements filled with foreigners had contributed to the intensity of the flu epidemic, and ultimately the death of her son. She owed it to Wallace to do what she could do to help keep things from getting any worse. Neelix stopped at the bottom of the steps and gazed wearily up at the sign, his brows knitted. "Come," she said, waving him up to the porch. "They will feed you here." She opened the door and waited for him. Trembling with fear, what if the nuns could tell she wasn't a nurse? What if they called the police or tried to keep her there? What if they turned Neelix away? Maybe she should have taken him to an almshouse or an asylum instead. "It's all right. No one is going to hurt you." She wasn't sure if she was trying to convince herself or Neelix. He put his hands in his pocket and scuffed a holy shoe against the sidewalk, then finally clambered up the steps. They went through the entrance into a short hall lined with straight back chairs opposite a closed door. The musty smell of old wood filled the air, along with a powdery fragrance similar to the lavender or or wait a minute, the lavender or tail, but tinged with the hint of something sour like sweet or rotten fruit. At the end of the hall, a nun sat behind a desk. She looked up when they entered. "May I help you?" the nun said. Bernice cleared her throat and approached the desk on wobbly legs. She couldn't help but imagine starving children locked in back rooms, their skin thin and white, their desperate eyes sunken in their shriveled faces. An image of the nun forcing her to stay there with her neck flashed in her mind, and she almost turned and ran. Then she gritted her teeth, glanced down at her nurse uniform, and reminded herself why she was there. Except she had no idea what the procedure was for dropping off a child at an orphanage, or if they accept immigrants. Maybe they lock her up for even trying. I found this boy on the street, she said, her voice tight. Do you have any room for him? Is he healthy? The nun asked. Bernice nodded. She had no idea if he was or not, and she didn't care. We're nearly over capacity right now, the nun said, but I'll check. She stood, came around the desk, and rapped on the closed door in the middle of the hall. Without warning, without waiting for an answer, she opened it and stuck her head inside. We have a drop off. A voice on the other side mumbled something Bernice couldn't make out. The nuns nodded, then closed the door and pointed to the chairs against the wall. Have a seat, she said. Someone will be with you shortly. Bernice led the neck over to the chair, amazed to think it might be so simple to get an immigrant off the street. He took a seat, his hands still in his pockets, and the nuns went back to the desk. Bernice wasn't sure what to do. Should she sit down and wait or go? Would they want to know her name or ask if she knew anything else about the boy? More than anything, she wanted to get out of that orphanage, to leave the horrible place behind. But departing now might look unprofessional. Nurses didn't walk out. Nurses stayed and faced their fears. The nun reached into a drawer, then came back around the desk again to offer the neck a package of Nico wafers. He smiled and took it. Thank you, miss, he said, then yanked over the wrapper and popped a white wafer into his mouth. The nun regarded Bernice. Don't worry, my dear, she said. We'll take good care of him. Thank you for bringing him here, but there's no need to stay. I know you need it by many others, so feel free to go, knowing the good Lord will surely bless you for helping this poor child. Breathing breathing a silent sigh of relief, Bernice only nodded because she didn't know what to say. Nilette gave her a weary smile, his innocent eyes filled with gratitude. She turned away and headed for the door, a pain, a guilt tugging at her heart. He had no idea what was in store for him. Her brother had told her how nuns used candy to lure children into believing they were nice. Now she had seen it all firsthand. Then again, why should she feel bad? It wasn't her fault. Ninette was on the street. Where was his parents? She heard stories about immigrants dying on their journey to America, so maybe something happened to them on their way here. And if that were the case, he would have eventually ended up in a poorhouse or orphanage anyway. Maybe his parents should have thought of that before they tried coming here. And I will be back with chapter 13 here.